Is this doing its thing? Oh, thank goodness. Oh, good. Lovely. I'm gonna let it load. I'm wearing my hat today. Why? I don't know. I wanted to. I'm not having a hair day. It's not even like a good or a bad hair day situation. I'm not having a hair day. It's not a day where hair exists. Sorry I'm like absurdly late. I thought I had said 6 o'clock. And that's just on me for not paying enough attention to my own statements. Today's energy is very, like I'm still kind of getting over this sinus infection, and I'm still like, I don't know, I'm very tired, and I don't really know why. So we're working on very tired, kind of still a sinus infection. It's late. So this might actually get quite funny because like 20 minutes ago I took an edible and caffeine. That's how you do it. Is you combo the two. Let's not worry about that. Hi friends. Hi. Okay. Hi. Oh, thank you. Yes, I love this necklace. It's a good necklace. Every now and then one of the sides falls off. But that's fine. We don't have to worry about that. Oh, good morning. Damn. That's right. We have not watched Skiz Code 100. I put up in the Discord a poll for what we'd watch today. So today is I'm starting back on my 2 kids room bullshit, and I've made the executive decision to do to we had sort of been jumping around a little bit, but I just made the executive decision to go back all the way to the beginning. We're going to go all the way back to the beginning and then do it chronologically because the jumping around was sort of starting to get me a little bit lost in the sauce. And I needed to keep better track. So for those who don't know, we've done 2 Kids Room 2025. We did Heart Kids Room. None of that's up anywhere yet. It was up on Twitch for a little bit, but it's not anywhere right now except my computer hard drive. I'll be working on it. We did 2024 1 Kids Room, some of which is on YouTube, depending on if YouTube got mad at me or not. And so now we're just gonna go back to 2018 2 Kids Room, and start from the beginning. I will probably ask folks their opinion and do some polls on whether or not we do the Ujin episodes. I want to, to be like perfectly transparent. I want to, but if it's gonna get me canceled on the internet, I mean, I do shit that gets me canceled. That would get me canceled on the internet all the time. But I feel like this would be somehow one of the more likely things to get me canceled on the internet. So I'd avoid it if that were the case. So anyway, we're gonna do HyuniBini today. Actually, first I'm going to open my stuff. We're gonna do HyuniBini today, and then I did a poll. We're gonna do No Way episode 2. I probably will do some other streaming this weekend because the Gothic Enigma is out for the weekend. She's going camping. And I don't have plans on doing Pride stuff because I don't like big crowds. I'm not a crowds person. Do I go to concerts? Yes, but that's different from Pride. Anyway, so I will probably try to catch up on some of the stuff. over the weekend um, because we've got. Is it different from Pride? No, you know what? I think this is celebrating Pride. I think watching Skiz Code episode 100, that feels like Pride to me. Right? That feels like Pride, yeah? I'm pretty sure. um Sorry, just opening up my stuff. I mean, yeah, doing anything Skiz related seems Pride appropriate, but like I feel like especially watching Skiz Code 100 feels Pride appropriate. Yeah. Um so that's the plan. Oh wow, I have a shopping tab now. Right, so technically, on the technicality. No, you can't say gay on Twitch. You can't say gay on the internet. I can auto mod you to allow though. You also can't try to get around the auto mod by spelling it in some other way. Uh so good luck. We can have a code word for gay. Um I guess. For folks on YouTube, technically, I am kind of monetized. I think that mostly this works out in that, like, you can give me tips or something. I don't really know how it works. It's like there's like a mini monetization when you go live that, like, involves, I don't know, some type of thing, but also I can sell products. Isn't that exciting, everyone? That I can sell products. I should make merch. I joked about making merch with a client earlier today. Um, it was just therapist merch. Uh, and it involves one thing would be a shirt that says my therapist is proud of me. And the other thing involves a shirt that would say getting a good grade in therapy, and then, like, in parentheses, because that's totally a real thing that I can totally get. So this is our current merch direction. Um this is probably not what I should be doing with my time and energy. I'd totally get stickers with weird Skiz therapy quotes. I'd have to start keeping track of my weird Skiz therapy quotes though. Like, I don't even know what my Skiz therapy. What do I say? I don't know that I say quotable things. I think the only time I've said something quotable is when we now have that gif of me saying, "Oh my god, he's such a weeb." Um I don't I'm not really, like, I'm not good in short form already. I really don't know that I'm good in, like, 6-word form unless it's like pre-written. It's not my improv style. Anyway, so you can now buy my very real merch. That's super real. Let's open up. Where is my fucking tab? I already had this in a tab, but I didn't. First of all, I didn't pay attention to what tab it was in. Second of all, I don't even. It might not have even been in the right browser. Um, hmm. Gosh. I don't think it was. It wasn't. It's in the wrong browser. Wow. I'm killing it. I'm always killing it. I need to go back through because there are absolutely quotable phrases. Any updates on my updated Hyunlik's misinformation video? Oh, yeah, I did claim I was going to do that. I think my updates on that is that I'm struggling a little bit. Like, when I did my last Hyunlik's misinformation video, it was very off the cuff, and that's part of how it got made. Is that I just was motivated to, and I just did it right then. I do want to make an updated Hyunlik's misinformation video and disinformation video. And I think I'm struggling a little bit between if I want to script it or if I want to do what I did with my last one and basically have like a high level, like just beats to hit and then do it sort of off the cuff again. Um, I also need to rewatch my Hyunlik's misinformation video, and I really don't want to do that. Like I really don't want to, um, because I hate watching myself in long form improv form. Um, I guess I don't have to, but I should so that I remember what I'm updating on. Um, so basically, the answer is not really. And partially because I don't know that that many people actually seemed like they wanted an updated Hyunlik's misinformation video. I don't know. Um, the reception on it was not as on that idea was not like it did not seem like something that people really needed. Uh, but if people have different opinions, then I'm happy to hear that. Um, I should probably do some polls on YouTube/Discord about what besides reaction videos to focus on. This has been an easy focus for me. This at this point is content updates and not me reacting to HyuniBini, and part of that is because I do need to pull French fries out of the oven soon. It has to be quite soon. Well, some point soon, I need to get my French fries out of the oven. Um, anyway, so yeah, if people feel strongly about getting a HyuniBini updated video, let me know. If you feel strongly about getting an updated one with a whole or not HyuniBini, Hyunlik's misinformation video, if you feel strongly about getting an updated one with like a bunch of cited sources and a bunch of like actual like things, then tell me that too, because that is a very different endeavor than trying to do it ad hoc. Is Twitch being a problem for anybody? I can't tell. I can't tell. Okay. Windows capture, where is, here we go. Nope, that is the wrong Windows capture. That's not what I want. That's in the wrong place. Here we go. All right. Oh, there's going to be an ad that starts in 14 seconds on Twitch. Cool. That's a great timing for me to go get my french fries out of the oven. I'll be back in about 60 seconds when the Twitch ad will be over. So, fam, today what I learned is that I cannot hear in my oven from my third floor. Which is really good information for me to have, actually. I'm glad that I know this information now. And now you also know this information. So if you ever hear me say that something's in the oven, remind me that I can't hear my oven from the third floor. The more you know. Wow, perfect timing. The Twitch ad is now over. And I have my french fries, which are mostly still edible. Very exciting for me. Oh, you know what I just remembered? These are like 4 minutes long. There's no way I'm only reacting to HyuniBini in these. I have watched some of these. So I remember that they're really short. They're only 8 minutes long. Okay, so we're gonna end up doing more than HyuniBini. We will do HyuniBini and whatever the next one is, unless for some reason I spend an hour on the 8 minutes of HyuniBini. And I've certainly done weirder before. I mean, I think Heart Kids Room was only 10 minutes or whatever, and I need to put this somewhere. Periodically spend 45 minutes on that. So, you know, we'll see. Okay, let me make sure my volume's up. That's too loud. And I want this obnoxiously large again. No, it's already obnoxiously large. Phenomenal. Okay, let's do this. Oh, actually, let me real quick. My screen is the wrong screen, and I need it to be the right screen. Yeah, I have watched these before. I don't remember which ones I've watched, and I don't remember much about them. I just know that I've watched some of them before. And that's about it. Hey, why did my YouTube cut out? Sorry, I need to turn off and on my YouTube for some reason. It hasn't? Oh, You're watching it on YouTube? My chat claims you're watching it on Twitch. Well, YouTube claimed that it cut out. So I restarted it, and we'll see what's happening. Now it says it's live again, so cool. That is what it is. All right. Okay. We've got this. Great. Okay, I guess it makes sense to chat on Twitch and watch on YouTube because I haven't figured out how to get YouTube chat on my screen. And I still haven't decided if I want it on my screen. I don't know. Or multi-chat on my screen. So as a context, actually, because I just realized that I might be doing this with folks who haven't watched any of it. So as a context, this started on April 11th, 2018. So that is a handful of months after debut. And so this is one of their like earliest pieces of post-debut content. And one of the few ones that actually still exists very accessibly on the Stray Kids channel. A lot of their early variety stuff you have to get through other means. So this is sort of so like for instance Spot Kids or the Nine or things like that. You can't get on the Stray Kids channels anymore. And there's a number of things that are just like still untranslated, at least officially. So that's the context that we're going into this with. Yeah. And so, as a reminder, that means in this episode, Hyunjin has fairly recently turned 18, and that would mean that Changbin, he might actually still be, because this was episode, this is on August 11th, so it's not quite his birthday yet. So I think that would mean that he's still 18, isn't he? He's 99, right? So babies.
에어컨이 나와. 뭐? 진짜 맛있네. 야.
I love that you know this is some like random room in the basement. Like this is not a real place. There's not even a carpet on the floor. Like there's like this might be an in use cabinet. You know, it's very possible that these things are actually like
넌 나를 처음 봤을 때 어땠니? 알려줘야 해? 어? 알려줘야 해? 난 충분히 알.
Oh. HyuniBini. There are some weird narratives around HyuniBini these days. As a reminder, like these two have been friends for forever. These two have been friends like decent chunk pre-debut. They're super close. And so at this point in debut, like Changbin is definitely one of Hyunjin's like people who he gravitates towards. And they're just really adorable.
해줄 수 있어. 그냥 난 일단 형이 들어오기 전에 꽤나 많은 얘기를 듣고 있었지. 나에 대한? 응. 내가 날 보기도 전에? 응. 어떤 내용 들었는데? 다 말해야 돼? 아니, 좀 걸러서. 아, 좀 걸러서. 그냥 창빈이 형, 그러니까 그냥 음악 하면서 약간 그런 바이브 있잖아. 그러니까 그런 바이브? 자신의 음악에 빠져.
What are you saying, bro? This is so awkward. It's so awkward to watch because they're so unused to filming this kind of content at this point. Like they very clearly, like, they don't know how to naturally integrate into the conversation. They are still like awkwardly being teenage boys in general. It's they just don't really know how to do this yet, and so it's just awkward and confusing a little bit. Like, what is Hyunjin talking about here? I don't know. He doesn't know.
그냥 음악 하면서 약간 그런 바이브 있잖아. 그러니까 그런 바이브.
Changbin doesn't know. Changbin still has that smirk. I'm glad to see that the smirk never changed. I'm not quite sure what the implication of the smirk in this instance is, though Changbin's smirk, even nowadays, half the time you don't know what the implication of it is. Like, Changbin has an entire world in his head that he is smirking at a lot, and you do not know what's in that world right then. I don't know if he's smirking because he's like, Hyunjin, what the fuck are you talking about? Or what, but he's still got the smirk. So despite Tiny Changbin being extremely confusing, at least that's still there.
바이브 있잖아. 그러니까 바이브. 자신의
Changbin's like, I don't know what vibe means, and I'm just hoping you get on with explaining it.
음악에 빠져서 살면서
Low-key surprised nobody edited out the Pringles. And you know that they're not very popular yet because the people at like giving them props or whatever was like, it doesn't matter if they have Pringles, or it's purposeful product placement. Perhaps they were sponsored by Pringles. I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll watch future episodes and see how many Pringles cans we see. If this is the first and last time we see Pringles cans, they just failed to edit it out. But if we see Pringles cans more often, we know that this content was sponsored by Pringles.
힙스러운 그런 느낌? 알지? 알겠다. 뭔지
The
알지?
hip vibe, you know?
그렇게 말했구나.
I don't see how it was.
않게 나를 얘기했나 보다. 살짝 부정 힙합 느낌이지? 부정.
Like, I guess I get what they're talking about. A hip vibe that's a little negative. But just like also culturally it's going to be a little unclear. Like, I'm going to have a cultural idea about what a negative connotation with a hip music vibe, but they're not saying hip hop, they're saying hip. And like, so I don't, like, I'm going to have an idea of what that means, but that does not mean that it's the same idea that they have of what that means. So all I know is that they're saying that what he had heard about Changbin was a little bit negative.
부정적인 그런 느낌? 아니 약간 그런 게 있잖아. 아직까지도 약간 얘기하는 것들 중에 내가 들어가자마자 레슨을 배우는데 내 주머니에 손 넣으면서 배웠다고 하는 거야. 그냥 그것 때문에 그 소문, 그러니까 그 왜곡된.
Oh my god, Hyunjin. Stop talking while you're chewing. Do you think he walked off stage and, like, one of the editors later was like, bro, you gotta stop talking while you're chewing? Like, first of all, everyone, but like the mic can hear it so well. Like, I'm just listening. And I understand. Like, listen, I do the same thing sometimes too, but maybe he's also aware of it, just like I'm aware of it, and just chooses not to care. But I don't think so.
그 소문, 그러니까 그
It's really the chewing while talking. He's chewing Pringles while he's talking too. Like, those things are fucking loud to eat. They really are just teenage boys here. Just very confused teenage boys. Oh, come on. I find it interesting that Hyunjin's about to go into the rumor mill thing. I have some thoughts about that.
그 왜곡된 소문들이 와 진짜구나. 이 형은 리얼이다. 뭐래? 야, 근데 그땐 약간 그런 게 좀 심했어. 너무 그 약간 나에 대한 그 너무 그 안 좋은 그게 너무 씌여 있었어. 그지? 그래서 근데 그거 한 2주일 있어서 바로 벗겨지지 않나? 형이 너무 웃겨갖고. 네, 내가 가장
Yeah, it's sort of an interesting way that rumors impact behavior, right? So, Hyunjin here is talking about, like, there was a rumor, and that rumor sort of kicked off other rumors, which is very common, right? This is why things like disinformation campaigns are so effective, is because rumors create more rumors, because people want to ask, like, well, why did that happen? What kind of person are they that happened? What are, like, people start to get, like, dopamine hits from positive social engagement with the rumor mill. There's a number of reasons why rumors beget more rumors, but that is how disinformation and misinformation campaigns happen. These rumors come about, and then somebody has to try to disprove rumors. Now, the thing is that it's very difficult to prove that something didn't happen. You can prove that something else happened, but it's very difficult to prove. So, if it's a murder trial, right? It's very difficult to prove I did not kill them, right? Without proving out a different set of events. If somebody says, like, well, you stole this candy bar, it's like, there's not really a way to prove, well, clearly, no, I did not steal this candy bar, unless you prove out a different story, right? You can prove I purchased this candy bar, right? You can get a receipt, and you thus are proving that you purchased the candy bar, and thus disproving that you stole it, right? Disproving that you didn't buy it. Because what you're saying to someone when you say you stole that is you didn't purchase it. You did not do the right thing. And that's just really hard to show out. So what you sort of have to do is just make people believe a different narrative, or make people believe that the narrative, that whatever rumors they've heard are irrelevant now. So somebody doing that, they can't just go around being like, well, these rumors you've heard, I didn't do any of those things, because you can't prove that you never put your hands in a pocket during you know, feedback session, right? Um you can't just convince people out of these things. So instead, what you do is you act in a way that will make people think that, well, okay, that couldn't have happened because look at what they do here. Or will make people think like, oh, well, maybe that happened in the past, but they're different now, right? And that's usually a more effective way to push through rumors. And so Changbin's kind of talking about like, there were all of these these like really negative prejudices against me, and he, it's not that he's not nice and funny, but he had additional incentive to be as funny and as nice as possible. Yes, I was the nicest and the funniest one in there. Right? Like, you can't look at me like that because of anyone here. I'm the funniest and the nicest. Right? Which, you know, I've sort of mentioned both that it seems like Changbin feels like some of the most stable, but also Changbin has, I think, a lot of the more exaggerated, like, on-screen versus off-screen. And obviously that's a guess because we don't know what his private persona is, but the way his public personas are tend to be very exaggerated in a way that's just like unrealistic to think that he's probably significantly like that off screen. And there are some things that we are told by some of the kids that he is different off screen, right? Hyunjin has said that Changbin is much more flirty on screen than he is off screen, right? And this might actually give us, you know what, I think it is product placement because that Pringles thing is put there so cleanly. I think it is product placement. I think this variety TV show is sponsored by Pringles, maybe. This maybe gives us a little bit of insight into both developing stability and having that increased distance between a personal self and a social persona. He had to learn the fortitude relatively young of, you know, people are going to have opinions about me that aren't quite right. And he also learned how to adjust his behavior to have more accurate interpretations of him relatively young, which in some ways gave him social, like the socialization training sense to engage with media like that, or the media that he is on, right? He's probably a little bit more aware of creating purposeful personas than, you know, some other teenagers are, like has a little bit more insight into sort of the intentionality behind it. That's also the type of thing that's going to persuade people to be a little bit more, you know, reticent with like the most vulnerable sides of themselves when they're young and sort of contending with these very like the ways others perceive me are very inaccurate to who I actually am, like very, very inaccurate. But if you're able to learn how to cope with, manage, and still like find your truth and center of who you are when you're that age, it helps you, like it would help somebody overcome some of the ways that idols can have that sense of self eroded at, you know?
얘기를 했을 때 누구보다 가장 너 되게 밝게 웃어준 거야. 아 진짜? 되게 막 웃어주고 재밌다는데 되게
Hyunjin, just stop. You are on camera, bro. Do you think they ever rewatch these, or do you think they go like, absolutely no way, I could never rewatch one of those of myself? I feel like it's probably the latter. Like they probably feel the way watching this about themselves, like any of us would feel watching old stuff of us. I bet they I bet that sometimes like Seungmin randomly pulls one up, not of him, of somebody else, takes a really cringy gif of like 10 seconds of that video and like sends it to the group chat. That's what I would do if I were Seungmin, at least.
웃어주고 그때부터 약간 편해진 것 같거든. 맞아. 나도 내 모습 그대로 보여주고 너도 네 모습 그대로 보여주고. 그때부터 친해졌어. 우리가 서로 그래 고민 같은 거 얘기하고. 맞아. 내가 처음으로 연습생 형 집 가서 내가 처음 친해졌어. 우리가 서로 그래 고민 같은 너도 네 모습 그대로 보여주고.
Show me your natural self. Oh. I just love that Changbin was like, oh my gosh, this kid thinks I'm the funniest thing. Clearly, he's safe to be around. No, it's so cute.
나도 내 모습 그대로 보여주고 너도 네 모습 그대로 보여주고. 그때부터 친해졌어. 우리가 서로 그래 고민 같은 거 얘기하고. 맞아. 내가 처음으로 연습생 형 집 가서 잡았다. 아 진짜? 용인까지 갔다 내가. 아 진짜야. 내가 너네 집에서 진짜 많이 자고 넌 우리 집에서 진짜 많이 잤다. 맞아. 너가 한 8번 정도, 난 너네 집에 한 8번 정도 자고. 정말 많이 잤지. 맞아. 주말
That feels like so little time. We slept over a lot. It's like 16. I get it's like 4 months. If they slept over every weekend, yeah, I guess I could. I guess. Okay. Sorry. I need to remember their ages versus their ages in time. So, if I'm 18 and I'm thinking about something that happened 2 years ago and we spent 4 months every weekend going over to each other's house, okay, I'd probably register that as notable even if it was a year and a half ago or whatever. Okay, yeah.
많이 잤지. 맞아. 주말이면 맨날 갔어. 용인 진짜 많이 갔어. 형 덕분에 그 보라동이라는
They kept track of the number of times they slept over at each other's houses? Do people do that? Sorry, this is just like my brain registered that so long after they said it. People just keep track of the number of times they slept over at each other's houses. Is the issue here, like, are sleepovers just less common? And so they're like rare and precious? Do boys not do sleepovers? Like, what's... I feel like I'm missing something cultural here because never have I contemplated like actively keeping track. Like, I guess if it's my like 3rd time doing a sleepover with someone, I'm probably still remembering that. But like, if I slept over at somebody's house 8 times and it's 2 years later, there's no way I know that information. I'm not actively counting. And I still do sleepovers, so it's not like this is me not remembering what it was like to be a teenager. I've been doing sleepovers since I was 6. Why do they each know how many times they each slept over at each other's house? is getting to me so much. It feels, maybe it's just because it's so bizarre conceptually, it feels notable somehow. I just don't know how. It's just very strange to me.
동네도 가보고 형 친구들도 보고. 내 친구들 진짜 웃기지. 맞아. 다 재밌으죠. 형 막 옷 입는 방법도 알려주고. 형이 그때 또 한창 형 패션에 빠져. 그러니까 패션에 대해서 약간 그 자부심이 좀 있었잖아. 그치? 그때는. 그때는.
It's so funny how much Changbin's fashion changed when he started working out, that like fashion used to be a thing that he just was not particularly interested in, or rather that fashion used to be a thing that he was quite interested in, and it has become this thing that he's not super interested in, just largely because he started going to the gym and he got used to being in like athleisure, right? I just find that really fun and interesting, of like why people's interests can change based on their other interests as they get older. Yeah, like it's something I often think about with some of these.
뭐 거의 뭐 그때는 내가 짱이다. 내가 싫으면 그거는 옳지 않은 패션. 약간 그런 느낌이지. 그때는 그래서 내가 형의 패션을 좀 따라가기 시작했지. 그때부터 옷에 관심을 좀 보이기 시작하고 맞아. 옷을 좀 사기 시작했지. 나 시작 전에는. 아 근데 사실 나 이건 자부할 수 있어. 내가 들어오기 전에 연습생의 그 옷 입는 거랑 내가 들어오고 난 후 우리 연습생이 옷 입는 그 시대 변화가 있어. 아 맞네. 되게 스타일이 다 바뀌었어. 형 인생에서 랩은 뭐라고 생각해? 내 인생에서 랩? 나는
The cuts are a little bit more no, there's still a lot of aggressive cuts in these days, I suppose. I do find I do love the I like actually was ready to. Oh my gosh, sorry. I was trying to download things and I forgot that if I click the download buttons, they just like immediately start playing, which is helpful of those things. Hi, I'd like to save this. I was multitasking is the long and short of it. Hello, can you go away now? I didn't ask you to stay like this. Weird. I find this origin story really cute of
싫으면 그거는 옳지 않은 패션. 약간 그런 느낌이지. 그때는 그래서 내가
There's also, we see some rigidity in Changbin, which is pretty normal for a young person. You know, at this age, rigidity just means that you're a teenager. But I find this very both cute and also a little like it's not 100% cute, but they're young enough that this is just such a common thing. You know, Hyunjin I like basically being like, yeah, you were my friend and you had this really strong opinion about fashion, and because of that really strong opinion, I started doing similar things. But mostly because like my friend was into it. This is common. I mean, it's basically peer pressure. It's just not negative peer pressure, right? It's pretty normal peer pressure. Um that's just us learning how to integrate with the rest of the world.
형의 패션을 좀 따라가기 시작했지. 그때부터 옷에 관심을 좀 보이기 시작하고 맞아. 옷을 좀 사기 시작했지. 나 시작 전에는
근데 사실 나 이건 자부할 수 있어. 내가 들어오기 전에 연습생의 그 옷 입는 거랑 내가 들어오고 난 후 우리 연습생의 옷 입는 그 시대 변화가 있어.
아 맞네.
되게
We're seeing some of the early signs of why Changbin is going to end up being a good idol. Which is that he clearly enjoys being in some way influential, right? That his artistic sense will motivate the artistic senses of others, will motivate the styles of others, right? It's not so much it's sounding like he's saying
다 바뀌었어.
형 인생에
it doesn't seem like he's saying like I'm glad I could influence people, that like it taught me that people are like I can have the power to like change people's minds or things like that. But more just I had an artistic vision that I felt strongly about. Because I felt strongly about it and I was consistent with it, other people's styles and artistic vision also changed. And there's a little bit of that type of attitude that like, yeah, you need as a celebrity. Listen, even the most grounded celebrities need to have some narcissistic traits. Narcissism is a spectrum. If we think about like personality disorders, I think I've gone through this a little bit before about personality disorders, but any type of personality disorder, they're basically spectrums, and at some point you get high enough on that spectrum that you become diagnosable. It becomes considered pathological, right? But most people are somewhere on a narcissistic spectrum. They've got some amount of narcissism in them. It's not at like 90 out of 100, Some people only have 5 out of 100. And that might be too little. Especially depending on what they're trying to do in their lives. In order to be any type of public anything, you need to have a little bit of the quality of it feels good to like be somebody other people change themselves because of in some ways, right? It feels good to have a certain type of influence in a certain type of way. And like it is exciting to be able to do that. In order to be a global celebrity, you have to have enough of that to continue to be motivated to do it on a global scale. This is a big part of the reason why a lot of big name celebrities are kind of pains in the ass, is because a lot of times the type of personality it takes to become a really big celebrity, to deal with all of the bullshit that comes with that, generally it requires a personality type that can be much more difficult to have intimate one-on-one relationships with, or one-on-one relationships of any kind, depending. So, we have to consider that different people's roles and different people's situations and what we want from different people might require certain traits or behaviors that we might not find as appealing either in one-on-one situations or societally, right? Like, I am 100% certain that at least a few people, when I brought up Changbin with the concept of narcissistic traits, probably immediately got a little bit defensive, because, like, that is not their conceptualization of someone like Changbin. But I also, like, I have a YouTube channel. There's an extent to which I have to have some narcissistic traits for that, right? This is a normal human thing that, I mean, NPD is also a relatively normal, not as average or typical of a human thing, but certainly a normal human thing. But narcissistic traits are a typical human thing. The typical person has some amount of narcissistic traits, and the typical celebrity requires a certain amount of narcissistic traits. Your idols cannot be idols in the way that they are if they do not have, you know, a decent chunk of narcissism in them, right? They gotta, or they can't cope with being celebrities that big, or not even cope, but they're not gonna wanna, right? Like, people who simply do not care about their art having influence for a lot of people for a long time in a lot of ways are not going to be motivated to do the type of bullshit. My camera just, I know, I'm going to fix it. To do the type of bullshit required to, like, become that level of famous, right? So this is just us being realistic about facts, and we are seeing here in this conversation an example that shows, from even when he was relatively young, the budding essence of those traits that he has had to have in order to have the success he has had.
형 인생에서 랩은 뭐라고 생각해?
내 인생에서 랩? 나는 약간 랩이 내가 가장 멋있을 수 있는 순간을 만들어주는 것 같아. 그지? 그러니까 나는 진짜
Hyunjin just thinks everything his friends say is cool. And I'm glad that that hasn't changed. Oh, I'm glad that he's been just so down bad since day one. Which I knew, but it's good to have it be confirmed.
그지? 그러니까 나는 진짜 평상시에 그런 거 학교 다닐 때도 그렇고 난 누구보다 잘났다고 그렇게 생각을 한 적도 없고 근데 내가 그게 항상 무대 위에 올라갔을 때 누구보다 멋있을 자신이 있었어. 그 위에
As I was just saying about budding narcissistic traits, right? You know, this is again like an important differential between like what starts to get people higher on that spectrum of narcissism. You know, you're grounded when you're off stage, and when you're on stage, you really lean into it. And that is a little bit of method acting to an extent too, of creating that persona. So you go on stage, you create this persona, and the persona can be better than everybody else. And in fact, that's the job of the persona. And, you know, there is euphoria with stage for most, you know, people who do stage work. That's why they do it. but there's also that like confidence, and especially when you're a teenager, getting on a stage and feeling confident, feeling that maybe I can be better than everyone else, because at least in this moment everyone is looking at me, right? But and knowing that you do well, that you are praised for it, that is very attractive to a teenager. Especially teenagers aren't really known for their confidence and self-esteem. So I think that it also, if you're in that situation where you have found the opportunities of being on stage and you are praised very heavily for it, that's going to continue to be something that you really gravitate towards, because it's very unique. It's something that you really can only grasp in certain circumstances, like realistically. And it helps you feel this way that like you are desperate to feel, which is loved, which is confident, which is proud. And teenagers are so, they need to feel that way so much, because like just very few teenagers, even ones who seem like they're very cocky or have a lot of confidence, most of them really really don't. They don't really have much of a sense of self yet to be super confident, you know?
있었어. 그 위에서 진짜 항상 그 쾌감도 되게 좋았고 내려와서 친구들의 그런 멋있었다 멋있었다 이런 얘기를 듣는 것도 너무 좋았고 그래서
그지.
무대가 일단 난 가장 좋았던 사람이야. 여러분 진짜 나한테 가장 진짜 좋은 선물인 것 같아. 나의 날 멋있게 해주는 하나의 그런 것 같아. 너는?
Now, he's still not at the point where he is willing to give himself credit for him being good at rap, right? He's still like, it's a gift, like this was somehow bestowed onto me, rather than being something that he learned to get good at, right? There may be certain things that like your hardware just comes with to make you better at something like rap than, you know, other people are going to as easily be good at, but mostly that's going to be your own hard work and dedication. And so like that's a place where we don't see a narcissistic trait, right? Because he's still talking about that as like something that like he's not talking about it like hard work that he did for himself, right?
나는 일단 춤을 솔직히 싫어할 법도 할 만큼 나는 욕을 많이 먹었었어 연습생 때.
맞아.
Yeah, I haven't rewatched this since Chan's bubble messages. And now, I always knew that there was a very high chance that when people talked about being scolded, it came with the possibility of abuse, and very likely involved emotional abuse. It's pretty common that the word scolded is, oh my fucking god, I would love if my camera's cord stopped like falling out of its socket. But it's very rare that you know, people can be repeatedly scolded over something they're working hard at and that be like the healthiest situation. But you know, now it has been confirmed that like some number of times the word scolded does mean physically abused. Which again did not surprise me at all in the least. In fact, would have surprised me if it didn't. But it is still, it's a certain type of difficult when what you are seeing is like an 18-year-old say that. When the 29-year-old says it in chat, that's sad, but they are also now grown and are able to move on and heal and etc. When you watch an 18-year-old say that they got scolded a lot and the sometimes implications of the word scolded, I'm not saying every time, I'm not saying that's universally what he's saying, but the occasional implications, that definitely sometimes that was the implication. That was what he's saying. And that sucks more. It just sucks more, you know? Because dance isn't something that someone should be made to feel like that over. No. No.
나는 최대한 따라가 보려고 노력을 했는데 그때는 또 연습을 어떻게 해야 되는지도 몰랐고 노력이라는 것도 뭐가 노력인지도 몰랐고 그냥 주구장창 하라는 대로만 그냥 주구장창 해도 안 헤어지니까 나 혼자 되게 짜증나 있었는데 이제 그 상태에서 형들한테도 막 많이 혼나고 했었으니까 되게 춤을 굉장히 싫어했었다가 그러니까 연생으로 진짜 좀 큰 형이 왔었는데 그 형이랑 뭐 그런 사람들이랑 같이 어울리면서 춤으로 뭔가 나를 재밌게 해주는 사람들이었고 그때부터 춤에 관심을 좀 갖기 시작했는데 내가 정확하게 춤을 좋아.
Yeah, and what he's talking about is exactly why any type of, scolding is not going to make people into good anything, right? Especially young people, they need like encouragement. They need to want to do it. They need a reason to do it. Otherwise, what you're going to get is a bunch of K-pop idols who can technically follow the movements but have no joy or passion in that dance, right? Helping people discover what they love about dancing, about any art, is far more effective than just telling them that they're doing it wrong. Especially a young person. So what he's saying is that, like, what got him through learning to dance was finding why it was fun, what he could love about it, and then basically just putting up with all the other bullshit. And I know what he's saying about, like, I didn't know what hard work was, but it doesn't really matter how hard you work. If you hate what you're doing, working hard at it is not going to make you love it more. That's just not really that's not super effective, right? Working hard at it is just going to burn you out eventually. So we have those older trainees to thank for Hyunjin being, the member of Stray Kids he is today, the dancer that he is today, because they taught him how to love an art form rather than how to follow directions exactly.
하고 열심히 해서 진짜 난 누구보다 난 진짜 메인 댄서가 되고 싶다라고 심지어 그때 진짜 못했을 때 어떤 연습생한테 말했었어.
알아.
그때 말했을 때 그때 있던 사람들은 그래 그냥 장난식으로 받아들이고.
I'm gonna be honest. Changpin looks pissed. Like, it looks like he's trying real hard to stay stoic about something he really.
그때 말했을 때
he looks like he kind of looks like he's just dissociating from this conversation, actually.
그때 말했을 때 그때 있던 사람들은 그래 그냥 장난식으로 받아들이고 난 춤으로 진짜 모든 거를.
And I can kind of get that because Hyunjin is really telling this story like it is a funny, joking story. And it's just not. It's a very sad story. This is a very upsetting story. And Hyunjin does not quite seem to realize that this is a very upsetting story. I think if I were Changbin and I probably didn't quite know how I felt about it, I'd probably be sitting there like, this is such an awful story. This makes me feel bad and I don't really know why.
뭔가 보여줄 거다 이런 마음으로 그냥 제 밑바닥부터 시작을 했는데 맞아. 되게 내가
Because like it's okay that he was like, I want to be a main dancer even when he wasn't good at it. Right? Like that's how it works. Is you have a goal and then you start and you're bad at your goal. That's you're supposed to be bad at the beginning. You're supposed to be bad at something when you start it. But like that doesn't mean you're not allowed to have that ambition. So like that's a very and there might be a little bit of a cultural thing there as well. I recognize, like in my head I'm like, that's that's why you motivate yourself towards getting better so that you can sort of achieve your dream. But I can see how like in a more humility focused place, what could be the case is that like you dream up to a reasonable point based on where you're at now, and that it's like cocky to dream too big. I could see that being the case. I don't know if that is the case, but I could see that being a little bit of what's happening there.
춤 연습을 할 때 그냥 다른 형들이나 다른 분들이 되게 야, 넌 그냥 잘생겨서 너 아무것도 안 하고 데뷔할 수 있어 막 이런 말 하는 게 되게 그러니까 좋은 말 같기도 하면서 뭔가 그러니까 자존심이 상하는 거야. 나는 연습을 하고 있는데 노력을 하고 있는데 너는 노력해도 안 될 것 같으니까 그냥 넌 비주얼로 막 이런 느낌인 거야. 그냥 독을 품고 연습을 했고.
So on Threads, I asked a question, which is like, what percentage of Stray Kids' success is based off of spite and sheer gay audacity? And I need to emphasize that what Hyunjin is describing is motivation based on spite and sheer gay audacity. Like, he was like, fuck these assholes. Like, first of all, I need to prove these assholes wrong. 1, because they're assholes. 2, because they're big assholes to me. And 3, because I don't like it. Right? So, like, first, spite. And listen, I respect that. Sometimes we gotta be motivated off of spite. And I stand behind that. I say it to people all the time. Sometimes you gotta be motivated out of spite. So we've got spite motivation, and then we've got gay audacity, which is, I don't care if I don't know how to do it, I'm gonna do it anyway. I feel like Hyunjin worked a lot out of spite in their pre-debut days. Like, listen, sometimes when you're a teenager, you're working out of spite. You know, it is very difficult for people. You know, a lot of people don't really know what feeling like steady and happy with themselves in their lives feels like. They haven't had that experience yet, especially teenagers. And so it's hard to motivate yourself based on like, well, if I do this, I will experience joy. Because you just haven't had a lot of that experience, you know? So sometimes when people are young, the way they figure it out is like, I'm going to be so happy because these people insist I'll be miserable. There are more and less useful ways to function out of spite, right? Less usefully is being petty and spiteful in a way where you're trying to make it like where it is about the other person and you're like trying to get in their face about things or whatever. But the more effective way to work out of spite is like, I'm going to be so successfully, it's the best revenge is a life well lived. I'm going to be so successfully good at the shit I think I need to be good at. And I'm going to base that on me and my perception. I am going to excel. And if you ever look me up, because you will know that I excelled so hard. And that honestly, it sometimes works pretty well. That's sometimes the cope that you need. And it sometimes works quite well. You know? Is it the best motivation to maintain for forever? No, it's going to ruin you eventually. That's not a forever motivation. But sometimes it's the motivation you need right now.
고, 그냥 비주얼 이런 얘기를 안 듣기 위해서 나는 그래도 지금은 좀 많이 나는 많이 성장해서 내가 원하는 목표는 조금은 이뤘다고 생각해. 왜냐면 진짜 아무도 몰랐을 거야. 내가 팀에서 댄스를 담당하고 있을 줄은.
너 항상 얘기했어 나한테. 진짜 하나는 꼭 잘하고 싶다.
맞아.
하나는 꼭 담당하고 싶다.
맞아.
근데 그게 또 네가 좋아서 하니까 그게 진짜 이렇게 빡빡빡 는 것 같아.
Sounds like a kid looking for a special interest to me, but whatever.
좋아서 하니까 좀 더 빨리 는 것 같긴 해.
진짜 좋아서 할 때 진짜 많이 느는 것 같아. 그건 진짜 인정. 너 자꾸 툭툭 건드냐 이거?
아니 더워. 너 너무 움직였나 봐. 덥다고?
I got too busy.
춥던데 더워. 제가 이렇게 나 열이 너무 많아갖고. 그럼 나는 갈래.
Do you have atypical temperature regulation, Hyunjin? And do you also find that sometimes you are so physically hyperactive in your space that, in fact, you almost end up burning extra energy and getting increasingly hot due to the hyperactivity of your body? Because do you find that you really want to get out of your chair and move around even when that's not appropriate to the situation? Hyunjin?
과자는
The chips are mine.
싫어.
Oh my god! Look at how fucking readable his handwriting was back then. Hyunjin, how has your handwriting gotten so much worse? I mean, like, it's not the most readable to me, but, like, it's much more I don't even try when I see his writing now. I simply give up instantly when I see Hyunjin's handwriting now. There is no hope for me with Hyunjin's handwriting in present day. If this were not backwards, I could probably actually make out, like, a large portion of it. Bro. Yeah, I guess he doesn't have to write much anymore. I don't know. I don't feel like... I guess his handwriting regressed quite a bit. I don't feel like my handwriting regressed a ton between high school and now, except that, like, now my hand cramps because I don't have enough cartilage in my hands. But that's just me, I guess. The art has infected his handwriting. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, maybe he just uses paintbrushes way more than pens now. He just keeps trying to use a pen like a paintbrush. intro was so long. That intro really was long. I never thought I'd get to write you a letter, though it is easier for me to express myself through writing than talking. Oh my gosh. And then he apologizes for the length of the intro, just making it longer. He's just... It's adorable. I wouldn't have been able to stand being a trainee without you. I think it was a moment of destiny that I got to make my debut with you. They're besties. Oh my gosh, they're just best friends. I love them. Hyunjin would laugh at all of Changbin's jokes, and Changbin kept Hyunjin sane. Equivalent exchange. This is getting too long. You don't have to write that. Okay. Hyunjin, I really like you. Oh no. Oh no! Is the saga of Hyunjin writing a massive letter that like pours kind of his heart out and the other person writing 7 words? Is that a saga that's gone on since 2018? Oh no! Oh baby! Oh my love! Oh honey! You've been doing this for so long, and you're still writing massive letters while everybody else writes like 6 words. Oh, that's so cute. I won't say much. I love you. Jongbin, see, Hyunjin was like, I am better in writing. Here's thoughts from me. And Changbin's like, I don't want to express an emotion. Goodbye. Oh no. Oh, he's so 18. Oh god. He's so 18. Oh, that's so cute. Oh my gosh. That's adorable. Oh. Um. Oh no. Oh, I thought about doing another one of these, but the next one is the infamous Minsung one. Oh, y'all, I don't know. I don't. Maybe I need to do that before watching No Way. Because I feel like watching No Way will make me feel better about this Minsung 2 kids room. No, I'm just gonna go in order. I'm not gonna bounce around with these ones, right? These ones are already out. So I'm just gonna go in order with these ones regardless. But oh god. Oh. Well, first I'm gonna update my settings here. Oh gosh. We're okay. Yeah, I think we're gonna go for Minsung. I think we're gonna do Minsung, and then I'll do No Way. And it'll be very good for me because I'm going to watch Minsung and I'm going to end up being like losing my mind. I'm gonna just be in so much pain from teenagers being teenagers. and then I'll get to watch kNOw being an adult, and it will make me feel better. I think that's the plan. Yeah, you can't say do it without getting the song stuck in your head. It is not a physical possibility, actually. Okay. Hey, where is... Okay, that's what I wanted for that. That's what I wanted for that. And then I need to move this, like, there. Okay. Ah. Oh no. Oh no. This is already a gay mess. I didn't say they're dating, I said it's a gay mess, okay? I'm so worried about my heart. Okay. Now, I'm gonna remind. So first of all, I only know some things about this episode. I've not watched it. I know I have not watched it. I've only seen some of the most famous clips of it. As I said in my other Minsung episode, I'm always just gonna call them all friends because I believe all of their relationships are friendships, regardless of any other relationship that's happening. At this point in their lives, none of them are interacting like queer platonic life partners, right? They are teenagers. And their, dorm setups are very different. The lives are very different, right? So anything I've said about talking about queer platonic life partners before is not really going to be relevant to these. I am certainly not going to be speculating on any of their private relationships on these. But if, people are being really suspiciously gay about something, I might say that. But it's not a speculation on anybody's relationships. It's not a speculation on their relationships. And I'm not going to play that game. We're not going to play that game. So that's a reminder about that here. The other reminder, so this came out, I think that this one is filmed on the same day, yeah. So in this, Han is 17, and kNOw, I believe, would be 19. Let me just double check that I know the older one's birthdays. I'm like pretty confident that I do, but I'm not confident enough. Yeah, he's 98. Okay. Yeah. So he would be turning 20 this year. It's August, so he is 19. So we've got Han at 17 and kNOw at 19. That especially means that I am not going to be speculating on anybody's private relationships in any way, shape, or form. And since one of them is a minor in this video, if I get people in my comments being weird, we're gonna have problems. Okay? Let us remember that. I sometimes entertain some nonsense in my comment sections with people saying somewhat sexual things about members in my YouTube comments when they're full-grown adults. We're not going to do it. when one of them's minor. Okay? So let's just hold that boundary there.
이제 얘기를 해볼까? 나 있잖아. 어제 편의점에서 계란찜 샀잖아. 그거 다 사놓고 오늘 아침에 늦었잖아 거의. 그래가지고 엄청 빨리 챙겨서 나와서 이제 다 하고 대기하면서.
Okay. So we've got another very clear Pringles. I do believe that Two Kids Room 2018, or at least the first part of Two Kids Room 2018, is brought to us by Pringles.
3층 올라가지고 전자레인지 데우려고 했는데 가방을 보니까 없었어.
일단 진짜 나도 비슷했어. 나도 아침에 아 밥 먹어야죠. 편의점 가서 그거 샀잖아. 밥 사가지고 우리 늦잠 자가지고 빨리 가방에다 딱 이렇게 던져놓고 들고 나왔단 말이야. 먹어야지 했는데 안 먹었어.
아, 난 분명 가져왔다고 생각했거든. 근데 없어.
This is one of the most asinine conversations I've witnessed as a third party. They're such children. They have no idea what they're supposed to do or talk about. They live together, right? They all live together at this point. They are around each other 24/7. They're fucking exhausted, and they're being thrown into some seemingly windowless room and told, chat with each other. And I've been told by someone I trust, though I don't know the citation on it, so like grain of salt. But I've been told by someone I trust that the kids' rooms are self-produced, as in that their content that the kids themselves pitched making. I'm not certain if they've always been self-produced or if they have only for some of that been self-produced, but what I have been told, but I do not have a citation, is that is the case. But, like, if that is the case, why don't any of them go in with... Because what is this conversation?
늦잠 자가지고 빨리 가방에다 딱 이렇게 던져놓고 들고 나왔단 말이야. 먹어야지 했는데 안 먹었어.
아, 난 분명 가져왔다고 생각했거든. 근데 없어.
Do you think they just sat there for several long silent minutes and that's what that hard cut was about? They just, like, sat around having no idea what to talk, or, like, just being time blind and not caring about talking? Passing these Pringles back and forth? Wow, they didn't... I said that and then they just kept doing exactly what I asked if they had cut all of it out. So they only cut out some of the sitting there staring into the abyss and eating Pringles. What was the plan here?
근데 요즘에 되게 자극적인 걸 좋아한단 말이야. 영화도 되게 자극적인 걸 많이 보고 무서운 그런 거 막 보고 음식도 엄청 매운 거 먹고 그래.
그러니까 몸이 안 좋지.
Lino's face. Lino's like, I'm gonna fight this little bitch-ass kid. I wonder if they just ate all the Pringles because they didn't want to get all the chewing on the mic, but they wanted to eat the snack because they were given snack. and so they just decided to eat all the Pringles then, so that they didn't have them to eat for the rest of the episode. That would be the reasonable rationale.
음식도 엄청 매운 거 먹고 그래.
그러니까 몸이 안 좋지.
나 굉장히 나몸 굉장히 좋아.
알았어.
요즘에 그래서 그거 뭐라 그랬지? 그래서 무서운 거 막 보는데 막 거기에 귀신 얘기도 있고 사람 얘기도 있는데 귀신 얘기는 되게 그냥 다 뻔하단 말이야.
그렇지.
귀신이 하늘에서 내려가지고 뭐 이거 갑자기 귀신이 나타났네 뭘 했네. 사람 얘기가 진짜 무섭더라.
맞아. 사람 얘기는 이해하면 그냥 소름이야.
맞아. 내가 이렇게 딱 길을 가고 있는데 저 골목에서 한이가 따라오고 있대. 얼마나 소름이야.
그게 왜 소름 돋을 일이야?
일단 너라는 것 자체가 소름이지.
그건 인정하는데. 형은 어떨?
How many of these do you think they just pattered off into silence and didn't have anything to say for a while? Like this feels like kNOw tried to find a joke to tell so that they'd have something to say, and then there really wasn't anywhere to go from that joke. And this seems well before, I don't know if Han is having an off day or if this is before Han was sort of used to like being kind of big on camera regardless of how many people were around or like what's up, but like Han's energy is fairly low here. kNOw I think is like trying to be a silly jokester, except he's only got random anecdotes, like very random anecdotes. And then they just sit there. I truly like listen, I don't know what they're cutting out between these cuts, but like I feel like 60% strongly that it is chunks of time of them having no idea what to talk about. Wild.
형은 어떨 때 제일 행복해? Tell me, baby.
I don't think this is the question kNOw was anticipating. I don't think kNOw expected to be asked about his emotional landscape in this moment.
나랑 있을 때 가장 행복하지?
Oh, good. We got some type of like emotional involvement. This feels like this little interaction that feels like possibly what their actual like more honest interactions are like. And what we know about them now is that would actually track quite a bit. Is that like what they sort of talk about now is that they're not necessarily having a bajillion like long and deep constant conversations. That's just not how most people who have like really close relationships of this type are engaging with each other, right? You run out of things to talk to each other about consistently. I think anybody who has been in any type of, long-term deep friendship with somebody has been in that experience of like, you just kind of sit around and hang out, and hanging out is not necessarily like a conversation. And sometimes it might just like look from the outside like being very silly together in some way, shape, or form, right? this looks a lot more like a really close relationship between two teenage boys that I would expect than like the rest of the stuff that's been leading up to this, which has felt very awkward and stilted. Not in a way of them being awkward and stilted with each other, but in the way of like there is an observer and the observer effect is clearly creating like a very different dynamic.
왜?
행복할 때 아침에 알람 소리 없이 딱 깼는데
알람 소리 없이 깨는 게 제일 좋아.
알람 소리 없이 딱 깼는데 아직 일어나야 할 시간이.
See, listen, everybody makes fun of me. Hold on, let me.
나랑 있을 때 가장 행복하지?
왜?
행복할 때
Yeah, kNOw does a great dodge out of actually giving me information about him. Fantastic dodge around giving me an actually useful answer. He's come up with something that makes him happy sometimes on a day-to-day basis. No, I do not believe that that is what makes him happiest. Now, I do understand that the supposed narrative is that he agreed that he's happiest when he's with Han, and that thus he cannot say when he is happiest. I am afraid we do not have evidence to back that up. There has been nothing here that has made that a more likely explanation than the explanation of kNOw seemingly has never, like I know he currently is very rarely, and it seems that he really has never been someone to be particularly vulnerable on screen. He's pretty rarely particularly vulnerable with other people in general. This has been brought up many, many times. He certainly isn't particularly vulnerable on screen. He's been asked a question about his emotional self-insight that he probably wasn't super prepared for, and that he probably doesn't really want to answer. And frankly, I find that to be far more... I have a lot more evidence to say that that's the scenario, that kNOw just doesn't actually really want to give this information out to the public, than to say that it's because of some twisty-turny, he agreed with Han, but he can't say that, and he wouldn't joke about, so he's gonna swipe, dodge around it. Like, maybe. I'm not saying that's not the case. I'm just saying that that is also not a narrative we have any more evidence for than literally any other narrative. Right?
아침에 알람 소리 없이 딱 깼는데
알람 소리 없이 깨는 게 제일 좋아.
알람 소리 없이 딱 깼는데 아직 일어나야 할 시간이 잔시간보다 더 많이 남았을 때.
맞아. 와, 그게 너무 행복해. 맨날 알람에 의존해서 깨다가 진짜 알람이 너무 짜증나거든. 야, 폰을 던져버리고 싶지만 그럴 수 없지.
아니,
진짜 알람 없이 깼을 때가 제일 행복해.
나 11시에 알람 딱 맞춰놓고서 이때 일어나야지 했는데 58분쯤에 깨. 10시 58분쯤에 열어.
그건 짜증나.
알람 다 더 뒤로 밀어버려 그냥.
그것이 인생이지. 나는 요즘 제일 행복한 게 두부 먹는 거. 진짜 새벽이잖아. 너무 배고프잖아.
맞아.
근데 형이랑 다른 형들이 이제 몸 관리한다고 안 먹잖아.
맞아.
난 그냥 이성.
Yeah, I knew exactly where the fuck this story was going when he said that I'm happiest when I eat. He said, these days, I'm happiest when I eat, and I knew exactly what the fuck he was gonna say.
진짜 새벽이잖아. 너무 배고프잖아.
맞아.
근데 형이랑 다른
And the
형들이
other
이제
guys don't
봉골레
eat.
한다고 안 먹잖아.
맞아.
난 그냥 이성의 끈을 놔.
I just lose my
형이
sense
이제
of
다
rationality.
먹었을 때
No, see, Han, you just have not convinced yourself into deeply disordered eating habits. Because if you're waking up starving, you're not eating enough. If it's the middle of the night and you're leaving practice, because there's a reason that Lino is setting his alarm for 11 a.m. and it's not because he's sleeping for 11 hours. It's because they're not getting home from practice until whatever, 2, 3, 4 a.m. If it's 1 a.m. and you're getting out of practice and you're starving, the rational answer, the logical response, the human symptom response, the rational response is not to maintain your diet. The rational, logical response is to eat. If you are hungry, the rational, logical response to your body is to eat. It is irrational, it is deeply irrational to leave practice in the middle of the night and feel that you are really very, very hungry and not eat. That is very irrational. People do it because they are afraid for their jobs or because they are afraid for their futures or because they are told that they have to do it, right? So it's a fear-based motivation system, or, perhaps for other reasons, perhaps for, when it's an eating disorder, there are other reasons that very often are based in fear and control. They are very emotional responses. Feeling yourself be deeply, deeply hungry as a 17-year-old and not eating when you have the access to, right? If you're not eating because there is simply no food, right? Because you are impoverished or in a food desert or, living under some type of rations or something. Sure, the things change, but if you have access to food and you are realizing you're very hungry, especially as a teenager, it is an irrational, illogical decision to not eat. There are reasons for it. There is rationale for it, right? We find rationale, but it is going to be emotionally motivated rationale. It's emotionally motivated decision making. Now, those emotions may not be disproportionate to the truth, right? Like, it might be true that if you keep doing that, maybe you risk getting kicked out of the group if you do it too frequently or some such. I don't know how true, some of these things are. That doesn't make it logical and rational. That's still an emotionally based rationale. Being asked the question, why, especially as a teenager, what impact does age have on this? You need more calories, right? Like, teenagers need so much more nutrition than people realize. Especially those for whatever, metabolic reasons have faster metabolisms or higher running metabolisms. Like, truly, I did not realize how much food teenagers need until I started working at an eating disorder clinic with adolescents, and saw what, like, their growth meal plans looked like, or like building meal plans for like appropriate growth charts and things like that. And of course, some of them were, you know, like there are reasons that those kids would have had particularly high meal plans in comparison. But like, I mean, the meal plans I was working with in like intensive outpatient level of care was usually between 4 and 5,000 calories a day, right? Teenagers are rapidly growing creatures. So, you know, there is a particularly, there's also a particularly high impact of not eating enough on teenagers. The impact on like young bones, on like there's the younger you are not eating at, the higher the impact on your lifelong health it'll be. So I know Skiz and Stay like to joke about their heights and everything, but sometimes I wonder I wouldn't be able to say one way or another, but it's not an inappropriate thing to wonder. As I have said before, you know, there are a very disproportionate number of herniated discs, of broken bones, of like osteopathic issues, and some of that is the pressure put on their bodies. But there is a very disproportionately high amount of those in idol culture, even more so than some other, like, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because dance culture in general has a lot of issues with eating. And what a lack of nutrition does to the bones, to bone health, is, I mean, it's scary. It's scary stuff. And I often wonder about how prolific these sorts of, you know, bone related disorders are in these cultures that are so both athletic and oriented towards being skinny.
포만감과 자괴감. 포만감과 자괴감.
Oh God, that's the satisfaction and despair when you're feeling full.
배불러. 어떡하냐 이거. 어떡하냐. 또 먹었다. 어떡하냐.
I ate again. What am I gonna do? This is awful. Wow, that's. You know, I think that probably as they've gotten older, they've at least gained more insight as to, like, the way they talk about food now is still, an exercise now is rough, but I think they've probably gained at least more insight as to the fact that sometimes they're doing worse and sometimes they're doing better with it. That it's not like just a fun, silly, cute thing or whatever. Maybe they have actually gained more insight into that, because this is one of the most horrific ways I've heard any of them talk about dieting before. This is real bad.
또 먹었다. 어떡하냐.
야, 뭐야, 나 그때 다쳤을 때.
And really also goes to show the priorities that people put into what they are talking about with different things in fandom, because I know so much about this episode from a shipping perspective. And I'm going to be honest, the conversation they just had is so much more fucking important. And I have never heard about this conversation.
너네 열린 음악회 갔잖아. 나는 다리 그거 때문에 아무것도 못하고 숙소에서 그냥
집에
가만히
삼겹살 시켜 먹었더니.
이러고 있었잖아. 그래서 삼겹살을 시켜 먹었는데 다리가 아프니까 의자에 앉아서 이렇게 밥 먹다가 할 게 없는 거야. 혼자서 먹고 또 누워 있었다. 또 약을 먹었어. 저녁도 먹어야 될 거 아니야. 저녁도 삼겹살을 시켜서 또 먹고 누워 있었다. 우리 다음날에 뭐 찍었잖아 그거. 얼굴이 이따만하게 나오는 거야.
아유 형 원래 그만해. 하지 마. 어쨌든 나는 말레이시아에 살았잖아. 말레이시아에서 빠꾸떼라는 음식을
빠꾸떼?
빠꾸떼.
아 빠꾸떼.
그래서 빠꾸떼라는 음식인데 그쪽에 약간 보양식이야. 되게 자주 먹는 보양식인데 한약재를 막 넣어. 그리고 돼지고기 막 그거 막 넣어. 그리고 이제 그쪽에 한약재랑 고기랑 같이 있단 말이야. 푹푹 끓이면 국물이 까매져. 까만 국물이야. 먹으면
Oh my god. Okay.
뭘 봐.
어쩌라고?
맛있다고.
맛있다고?
추천하고 싶다고.
아 나한테 추천해주고 싶.
Thank you, kNOw. Thank you for saying what I was
맛있다고.
thinking.
아 나한테 추천해주고 싶다.
말레이시아
Which
가든가
is
그러면
why is
먹어본
this
아, 난 많이
conversation
먹었어.
happening?
어쩌라고?
맛있다고.
So are we surprised the company doesn't edit out proof of maltreatment or unhealthy lifestyles? No? Why would the company think that this is bad? I think that people think that like this is extreme. It's not culturally. Like that this isn't like I mean, honestly, this isn't even like something I would necessarily consider super extreme for something seen in the United States. Like I think that people would think it was a little extreme, but no, people send out trucks for maltreatment if they think there's maltreatment. People do not see dieting as maltreatment for idols. Right? Like first of all, it's not even saying that these things are being forced on them. Like we don't see any proof that the company is forcing a harshly restrictive diet, right? A lot of people think, first of all, that it's fine for teenagers to be on diets. And second of all, they think that dieting is about not eating when you're hungry, right? That's not what a healthy diet change looks like. But that's what a lot of people think. They think that like what healthy, like that it's healthy and reasonable to not eat when you're hungry. Like that's what most people think, just like normal, typical, like even positive behavior is. So I don't think that we see like, so we don't have any evidence of like Skijigi or anyone besides Skijigi at the company like enforcing an overly restrictive diet plan. We just sort of know that that's probably the case based on context now. And like generally, if you are not about to literally pass out, or if you're not saying that I'm on a starvation diet or that like I'm being forced to be on a starvation diet, like a lot of people are just going to consider this kind of reasonable, normal celebrity behavior. They're not going to consider this maltreatment. So no, I don't think you would get protest trucks from, especially because like billboard trucks are things that are primarily used by like South Koreans. Like there don't tend to be a ton of them being used by people from, you know, cultures that may have different perspectives on food and eating. But even in US society, right? I think that the only reason anyone would contemplate that conversation being related to maltreatment is because one of them is still a minor. I don't think most people would consider that conversation to be something that would be worth any type of protest over. I mean, they have those kinds of conversations all the time, and people aren't protesting. They might be kind of complaining online, but it's not like, you know. So yeah, I don't really have any reason to think that people would choose to protest this. And I think it would be something that'd be very difficult to protest. I think it would require very sustained, specific, systemic action, because it is like a cultural shift. And it would have to first be focused on minors, right? Like, I think first it would have to be focused on children, about not forcing children into certain diet structure. But like, it's not enough to say overly restrictive diets, because that's what's an overly restrictive diet to one person versus another is going to be very different. um it it's so cultural and so ingrained and such a big problem that I think it would require, honestly, I think in order to see mass support for trying to get companies to stop inflicting like radical diets onto people, I think it would probably require, honestly, I think somebody would have to, I think somebody would probably have to die. Like, I think somebody would probably have to, like, die or nearly do so, or like have to leave the industry because of health outcomes in a very dramatic way. It's so ingrained. It's so ingrained in people. It would have to take something really dramatic.
맛있다고?
추천하고 싶다고.
아, 나한테 추천해주고 싶다.
말레이시아 가든가 그러면.
먹어본 거야?
아, 난 많이 먹었지.
아, 진짜?
응, 되게 자주 먹어 사람들.
아, 근데 나는 딱 그게 있었어. 집밥이 제일 좋다.
아, 나 집밥이 제일 좋아.
왜냐면은 맨날 인스턴트만 먹다가 명절에 한번 가서 명절에 한번 가서 집밥을 먹었다? 예, 힘이 나긴 나더라. 힘이 나.
Yeah. Yeah, it turns out good food
아, 진짜 뜬금없는
good
얘기인데.
food is
명절에 한번
pretty
가서
motivational.
명절에 한번 좋다.
아, 나 집밥이 제일 좋아.
왜냐면은 맨날 인스턴트만 먹다가 명절에 한번 가서 명절에 한번 가서 집밥을 먹었다? 예, 힘이 나긴
Good,
나더라.
highly nutritious
힘이 나.
food is great.
현진이네 어머님이 진짜 잘해 음식. 아, 진짜 뜬금없는.
I'm glad that Han is still displaying those traits of conversations that simply go places, and you're doing your best to keep up with them, even when he's a teenager.
얘기인데 진짜 뜬금없는 얘기인데 내가 연습생 때 몇 번 잤단 말이야 현진이 집에.
I think he says this is completely irrelevant less now. I think he's less inclined. I think he's less likely to announce that he's not going to bring this back around to a different part of the conversation now.
그래서 아침에 밥을 먹었거든. 진짜 맛.
Okay, I want to bring this up because this is a narrative that people have about pre-debut Han and Hyunjin, which is an incorrect narrative, which is that they just didn't get along. That they simply just didn't get along. They were only at each other's throats. They were only nasty to each other, or they were only... But they've even said this in the Two Kids rooms from last year, which has blown my mind of people who I know have watched those still having this narrative that Han and Hyunjin, when they were trainees, were just enemies, right? That was not the case. They've said that they were like very on or off again, right? That sometimes they were fine and then they'd have this big blow up, right? And that, you know, then they'd get along and then they'd have some big blow up and like it was a very volatile relationship, which is going to be much more common for teenager dumbs, is volatile relationships. Simply, I despise this person and we don't get along relationships are kind of less common. Volatile relationships tend to be more common. And a lot of that has to do with like rejection sensitivity. There's a lot of reasons for that. But yeah, it based on what they've said is that they were not just like, they did not just despise each other, right? So, you know, he's bringing up here that when they were trainees, he slept over a couple of times at Hyunjin's place. Yes, sometimes it happens that you end up sleeping over at people's houses when you can't stand them. But more likely, they just like during one of their on again periods, you know, sometimes when they were getting along, they'd like try to keep getting along.
아침에 밥을 먹었거든. 진짜 맛있어. 진짜 맛있어. 진짜 내가 먹어본 집밥 중에서 제일 맛있었어.
자, 한이의 애교 스쿨.
내가 진짜 팬분들한테는 정말 팬사인회에서도 막 이제 가까이에서 할 기회가 많은데 그래 자 야 1대1 레슨을 해줄게. 왜 형이 하라고 했다.
아니,
형이 하라고 그랬다.
알았어.
아니야 형이 하라고 그랬다 난.
손은 내가 엉덩이 밑에다 깔아놓을게. 때릴 수도 있으니까.
나는 가급적으로 다리도 깔아줬으면 좋겠어. 다리로도 맞을 것 같아서.
여기 겸손한 자세로 받아들일게 내가.
그 다리한테 맞으면 나는 쇼케이스 못해.
이 느낌을 원하는 거.
오케이.
자, 어디 한번 해보시게.
오케이 잠시만 난 막을 걸 다 막겠네 일단.
오케이.
움직이지 말게 나. 아니야 눈은 떠야지. 1 더하기 1은 귀요미. 2 더하기 눈을 마주쳐야지. 이리 와봐.
스쿨이라 그랬지? 자퇴하겠습니다.
That was physically painful to watch. You know, to cringe is to be free, but I don't think that happened on purpose. I don't know that the cringing was on purpose in this case. I mean, I guess it was. I guess Aekyo always is. Because that's actually what he said. He didn't say charm school. He said Aekyo. It sounded like, I'm pretty sure. This is again contextually, like, this is insane. And contextually also,
스쿨이라 그랬지?
there's a very good reason for that cut, which is that this was incredibly cringy to watch. Do I think they suddenly started making out on this couch? I think there are many other options. I'm not saying they did or didn't. I think there are many other options. Primarily, I think there's the option of like that incredibly awkward bad aegyo just kept happening for another like 30 to 40 seconds, and eventually Lino was like, this is awful, we gotta stop. And they cut that out because that would have been intolerable to experience, right? Like, I think that's something that is useful for people to remember, is that media analysis and media literacy is based a lot in going, what else could be happening? Right? So, yes, okay, we have this narrative of an option that is a very popular option of what could have been happening. And it's a possible option. Again, we can't disprove, right? I cannot disprove that they suddenly kissed or something, right? Like, I can't disprove that. However, I can think of a number of other narratives that may have happened. I will say to somebody in the comments, I will say, Potato, I don't know that there were staff in this room. I suspect, actually, based on how incredibly sitting around in silence and saying absolutely nothing of value for a while, these two did, that legitimately there wasn't staff in this room. But there certainly were cameras. I mean, there hasn't been staff in most of their kids' rooms. There were staff in Hart's kids' rooms. But there, like, and there's staff in one kid's room. But like, most of their two kids' rooms, like, the staff is not standard. The whole point is supposed to be like, and there might still be a staff member sitting behind a camera somewhere, but no, the supposed point is that there isn't any staff in here. Now, that could be a lie, right? It could be that there is still staff in there anyway, but supposedly part of the point is that there's not. If there are staff, I don't think they're doing anything because, like, again, they just sat there for several minutes eating Pringles without saying anything, right? So, like, if staff is there, what are they doing there? Why are they there? No, if there were 20 people sitting on the floor watching them off camera, why would they be putting all the cameras in the walls and then covering them up? Part of the reason why in the 2025 two kids rooms you see so many different angles is to show that there's not somebody else in the room. Like, in most of those episodes, you see an angle of everywhere in the room, and you don't ever see anybody else in the room. And all of the fucking cameras are in the ceiling and then edited out of the shots. Now, it could be that in these ones there is a staff member, like in Lives. But if there were any staff members in any of the 2025 two kids rooms, they were not in the room. I'm sure that there were staff members monitoring, and there were probably staff members monitoring here, right? But like, honestly, I'm not even 100% certain of that. Like, maybe there were, maybe there weren't. I don't know. That's just my guess. But again, like, if there's any staff involved in this, those staff members are not actually getting involved. If they were, this wouldn't have been a basically pointless ramble from the two of them for the entire time. Like, they have told some of the most asinine, useless information stories we have ever gotten out of them. This has been such two teenage boys who are always in proximity to each other and have no idea what they're supposed to be talking about on camera, trying to talk on camera. If there were staff in that room, those staff were doing jack shit. So we go back, regardless, to we always got to be asking questions about what are our other options. We have like a narrative of what's going on. What's the other option? Of what is going on. I'm sorry, I have to laugh at this YouTube comment, and I have to do it live. Because I need to laugh about it right at this moment, which is nobody cares about Stray Kids cut to the chase. Honey, what do you think the chase is? What chase is happening? I'm honestly like 60% convinced that this is a bot because of how absolutely ridiculous it is to come on to a Stray Kids live stream to say cut to the chase. About not Stray Kids. What chase am I going towards? What finish line am I aiming to? We're at the chase. You're prey. Like, that's gotta be a bot, right? Because that's very funny, if not. Cut Skiz to talk more about Skiz? Maybe I'm supposed to be responding to therapy things without talking about the thing I'm responding to. In which case, you should probably take just like a clinical social work class. Maybe. like consider reading a book about therapy instead. I don't think. Just joining YouTube user Meta Skizverse to tell them to cut to the chase away from Skiz is so funny. Okay, tomorrow. Okay. See you tomorrow when I'll still be talking about Stray Kids. To the person asking if I ship Minsung, I answered that question at the beginning of this stream, and I also answered it during my reaction video to their 2025 Two Kids Rooms, which is on my channel. I periodically answer that question, which is to say that my shipping is irrelevant to this as a therapist reacts channel. That would be deeply unethical of me to engage seriously with speculation like that. We know I shit post about shipping all the time on my Threads account, but that is just not something I would talk about. Yeah, so to jump back, my point with this was that we have to ask ourselves, are there other options for what's happening? So, like, yeah, okay, sure, we can go with the option of, like, release the unedited tapes or whatever. But we also have to go with the, like, what are other possibilities of why that cut would have happened. And I think that it is also a possibility that the next 30 to 45 seconds were incredibly awkward and cringy because these boys are being incredibly awkward and cringy because they're awkward, introverted teenage boys. They're awkward, shy, introverted teenage boys who don't know how to be vulnerable on camera in a helpful way yet being asked to be vulnerable on camera in a helpful way. So I think there's a lot of options of what happened.
쿨이라 그랬지? 자퇴하겠습니다. 1학년은 썩었어. 학생은 썩었어. 어떻게 학생한테 그럴 수가 있는 건가 자네.
학생. 애교란 이렇게 하는 거네.
Oh, they're back to eating Pringles as a coping mechanism.
자고로 애교는 약간의 이런 맛이 있지 않냐. 그러니까 그러지 마. 왜 그런 짓을 해?
Oh my god. You're right. If that aegyo happened today, the cut would have been Lino filming Han doing the same thing again. You are correct. Yeah. This is a little bit before Lino decided that he was going to adjust his public persona to be what it is today. You know, he very intentionally he very intentionally sorry, I got really distracted with how do I get rid of this person? Somebody they're weird and I am not a fan of whatever weird ass shit they're talking to me about. Yeah, let's hide this user on this channel because they went from being unhinged to being weird. And I don't like that. I don't like that. Sorry, getting back. Yeah, the Lino kind of went through a very purposeful, intentional creation of a public persona. I think due a lot to how the public perceived his more sort of closed off demeanor. And this is, you know, he's still in a process at this time of figuring that out.
이런 맛이 있지 않냐. 그러니까 그러지 마. 왜 그런 짓을 해?
미쳤냐 진짜.
And like what he just did is actually going to sort of end up being the way that he does it is by this, like, you know, the whole point of aegyo is being like really over the top, and what he ends up learning is how to lean into that. Because like part of Han's difficulty with this aegyo thing is that he's not leaning into it yet. He's still trying to take himself seriously, you know?
약간의 이런 맛이 있지 않냐. 그러니까 그러지 마. 왜 그런 짓을 해?
미쳤냐 진짜.
Oh my gosh, his handwriting's so bad. I love seeing how their handwriting changed too. Oh my gosh, this is very chaotic handwriting. At least like from a size and position perspective. You know, when I think of you, I think of this song. Oh. Oh. Saying I love you is too cringy, so I'll skip it. What an incredibly teenage boy way to say I love you. Is to be like, I'm not gonna say I love you. I would never say that I love you because that's like so gross. Whatever. And then walking away and you're like, you know, you just said like your entire point. You just, this is very, that's a very, it's a very like malcontent teenager trying to be a tsundere and not being a tsundere at all way of saying I love you. What I love is that I love you is too cringy, but you are my forever companion. Please continue to be my soulmate is a very rational, level-headed, unemotional, like not at all involved sentiment. That sentiment, that's normal shit right there. But I love you, that's cringe. They're so funny. Baby Han would be so proud to know that he's now roommates. You know that they live together now, as Han so eloquently put it, that they live together now. He'd be so thrilled. Have I seen the video of Han flirting with the members, especially Hyunjin? I have seen so many videos. To answer your earlier question, I have been a stay. What year is it? Okay, we're not quite at 2 years. Almost 2 years. And this has been my special interest since I had been into it for about 16 hours. So I've seen a lot of videos, is my point. I don't tend to do a lot of edits because I find them to be rife with dis and misinformation, but I do a lot of videos that have like less edited, just like captures of their videos, and also just their videos. Wow, you have been a stay for a minute, my dear friend. I will also recommend a song to you. Quit. Okay. I'm hungry, so I'll end it here. You're my good friend. Thanks, Lino. Okay, so Lino gave me nothing here. I'm not surprised. I'm yeah, like it's going to be pretty uncommon that an adult on screen is going to be significantly less open about their mental for people who don't know. I have been on a quest. I've been on a quest to understand Lino. On more of a like psychological in-depth level. Because what Lino does not do a lot of is talking about his inner world. Some of the members talk a lot about their inner world. Some of the members don't think they're talking about their inner world, but very, very much are. And then there's Lino, who simply does not talk. He's just not very open about himself. He's not very open about what he thinks, about what he feels. He's a very he's a very practically minded guy. And a lot of the information he gives us about himself is very practically oriented. Yes, Lino, international man of mystery. Oh my god. Okay. Now I'm imagining Lino and Austin Powers. Okay. I don't want to. It just keeps going. I'm not here. I did not want a fan cast in my head of Lino. It's Austin Powers. I don't like it here. Anyway. Yeah, so Lino, being an international man of mystery, which I don't like. I've been on this quest to get a better sense of him. And a large part of this is because I want actual useful evidence to back up the 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 various neurodivergence claims, which is working out very difficultly for me because he does not give me much information about his inner world. Now, I did not expect this to give me much information about his inner world. I don't expect any of these to give me much more information about Lino's inner world at any age, because usually people do not go from being more open to being less open from like being teenagers to being in their mid-20s. However, I would not be surprised if people who went from their mid-20s to their mid-30s, especially leaving the idol system for a period of time, to be part of the military and then going back into the idol system, that may change again for some of them. But I would not expect somebody who is more reticent to share information about themselves to watch much older content about them and have them be much more open. Usually that direction of things means something very traumatic happened between those two experiences, right? So yeah, no, I expect that generally I get even less from Lino, from 19-year-old Lino, than I get from 27-year-old Lino or 26-year-old Lino. 27-year-old. He's 27 right now. Listen, dates are not my forte. So not surprised by that. What did I get about Han? I don't know. He seems like a really shy, awkward teenager being put in front of a bunch of cameras and not really sure what he's supposed to talk about. That's what I got from Han from this one. Yeah. So, we're gonna be done with that. I am going to. So we're gonna do. So I think No Way will be great after this because I'm going to be so excited because I'm going to be like, wow, Lino really talks a lot about himself now versus when he was 19. This is the way to do it. But first, okay. First question. Have I heard the new comeback yet? I mean, I've heard the single. Yes. I reacted to the single the other day. But it's still in a live stream format, I think. I don't know. I need to see that. I need to figure that out. Did a bunch of unhinged lore about it. Did not get very far. I need to like find several books. Now that I've watched this, now I have to watch the recent version. I've already done the 2025 Minsung 2 Kids Room. I have already done all of the 2025 2 Kids Rooms, the Hearts Kids Rooms, and the 2024 1 Kids Rooms. I like to learn members very, very well as they are before I go back in time, in order to not get their past selves conflated with their present selves in my mind. So I'm going to grab liquid. I'm going to grab water. And I don't know, some Jello or something. And then we will do No Way. Let me update my stream information so that people stop trying to join a Minsung stream that is no longer happening because I just finished it. Settings. No way. No. And yes, I saw that there's another No Way. Listen, I'm never going to be up to date on No Way. That's just how it is. Okay. Just chatting. All right. Update streams. Okay. Now that we have some updated streams, it is time for folks. If you have not stood up in a little while, please do that. Please stand up. Please stretch. Remember that it is good for you to stand up approximately every 40 to 50 minutes for a number of minutes in order to manage your cholesterol. That's my therapist advice. Yeah. Where is... I have another button that I need to press in a different place, and it's an issue. Why can I not click this button? I want to click this button. Okay, well, I guess there's no button clicking for me. None of you know this button that I'm trying to click. There's no reason for me to complain about not being able to click this button. I'll be back in we'll go with 6 minutes. I need tea. And a mango. I need a mango. That's what I need. Well, everybody, like, good news. My kitchen is no longer filled with smoke, which is very exciting for me. Yeah. That was my sentiment about that. I need to light this candle before I... And by need, I mean want to. I want to light this candle before I watch No Way. Don't worry, I'm fine. We all know that my ability to interact with physical space is doing great. Always has been. Always will be. I say right before I decide to... Ah, there's a bug. There's always a bug. Hate this city. I hate this city. I hate this city. I don't hate the city. The city's great. It's just filled with bugs. I only got half of the candle lit. My life is really hard. Fine, whatever. Okay. Great. Good timing. Actually, let me figure out if my camera is still... What happened to my audio capture? Okay, there we go. Now it's back. Cool, 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 cool. Okay, we can start No Way. Wow. I take it back. Hold on. I listen, I can only allow my video to be so yellow. It's very yellow. It was all yellow. That's how that song goes. Don't worry about it. Okay, that's slightly less incredibly yellow. Maybe it's just dark in this room, and I just have to cope with that reality. All right. No way. No way. Don't worry about my Charlie the Unicorn sounding ass voice. Okay. It's difficult right from the start. Poorly no. Poorly no.
우와, 저 불가능하면 집 보내줄 거예요?
It's fun as fuck, actually.
아유, 안녕하십니까. 좋은 아침입니다. 비가 와요. 노맘대로. 이화입니다. 살짝 조금 적응이 된 것 같기도 하고 아닌 것 같기도 하고 오늘 이렇게 편하게 입고 온 이유가
His hair looks
우리
great.
순이가 오늘은 한치의 고민도 없이 무중력 체험을 골라줘서 오늘 제 고소공포증도 조금 좀 나아질 수 있게 오늘 재밌는 체험을 한번 해보도록 하겠습니다. 죽게 하겠어. 오,
저 갑자기 심장이 빨리 뛰기 시작.
How do I feel about this as a method of exposure therapy? Because that's clearly what he's trying to do. I think that probably, if he is the one, okay. Let's take this from a clinical perspective. I don't know that he's taking this from a clinical perspective. I don't know if it's that serious for him, right? That's not going to be our working model assumption, though. So let's go from a clinical perspective about exposure therapy and how we would go about thinking about something like exposure therapy. So first off, exposure therapy involves an understanding of what it is that is going to distress you. And what steps might have some distress, but not as much distress as that thing. So, I think a really common example is, let's say you have a phobia of an object. Let's say you have fork phobia. Phobia of forks, and you're really afraid of using forks specifically. The idea of using a fork generates in you this absolute terror. You're gonna hurt yourself in some way, or it's gonna contaminate the food, or et cetera and so forth. So let's say you have this fork phobia. We're gonna ask, like, okay, so using a fork, eating with a fork is really distressing for you. How do you end up feeling when you just look at a picture of a fork? Let's say, what is the scariest possible thing that you can do with a fork? Like a thing that scares you so much that you, even thinking about it, like you start to, even conceptualizing it starts to get really stressful for you. It's like, well, the scariest thing that I can do with a fork is eat a food that is like very hot, because I'm afraid that the fork is going to also get very hot. Like, there's a number of factors there that make me particularly afraid of that experience. The idea of eating, really hot ramen noodles with a fork absolutely fills me with dread. And then we go like, okay, what about looking at a picture of a fork? And we're sort of testing here, like, is it eating with a fork that's a problem, or is it the fork? And, they might go like, looking at a picture of a fork doesn't cause me any problems at all. I don't have any issues looking at a picture of a fork. And it's like, okay, well, what about looking at a picture of somebody else eating with a fork? And it's like, okay, that starts to give me some feelings. I don't like that. I wouldn't say that it's anxiety, right? But I don't know, that makes me a little bit... So it's like, okay, so maybe you're thinking like a 1 out of 10. Right? And they're like, yeah, like 1 or 2 out of 10. Great. Okay. So what we're aiming to do is to find things that hit somewhere in the sort of like 20 to 60% range. Because those are the things that we're going to utilize for our exposure therapy. At the higher end are things we are going to do less frequently, because they will require more regulation afterwards. So they require more discussion beforehand, more safety measures in place, more regulations afterwards, etc. We do not want to go above like a 7 out of 10. If we can help it, we don't want to go above a 7 out of 10. Like 7 to 8 maybe. Because what will happen then is that a lot of what people are afraid of with phobias is the fear itself. If you are getting high enough that you start having a panic attack, then what you are teaching yourself is that, yes, indeed, engaging with this thing gives me a panic attack. So if looking at a picture of somebody else eating with a fork is an 8 out of 10, we have to go back even further than that. We have to start being like, can you read a story about somebody eating with a fork? Like, in a story, can you read the sentence, like, he picked up his fork and ate his spaghetti, right? Like, we have to start getting creative. Because it doesn't matter how innocuous it seems from the outside. If the person starts panicking, exposure therapy is not going to be as helpful. What we'll often do is say, though, like, when you want to quit, try to see if you can hold on for another 30 seconds. And sometimes they'll be like, no, I can't. And it's like, okay, well then once you say, no, I absolutely can't and I will not, it's done. It's over, right? Or if your support person notices that there are like severe panic symptoms that they can't de-escalate with the coping strategies that have been discussed as part of exposure therapy, which is essentially like, okay, we want to keep you at about this place. We're going to try to see, like, can you eat with a fork for, this takes a little while, but can you eat with a fork for, we might do 2 bites, we might do 30 seconds, right? Might be whatever that is. And, avoidance is going to be the first coping mechanism. So, we try to say, like, first, here's the coping mechanisms that we want to try to use, right? Maybe there is a distraction method that will help you. Maybe there is some type of other external stimulus, like if you're listening to music, or maybe if you're having a conversation, or, whatever. And then once you start going like, I don't know if I can do another 5 seconds, or like, oh, maybe I want to quit. A support person being like, do you think you could try 1 more bite? Or do you think you could do 5 more seconds? And then it's over. And then we do that a lot. And once the activity or activities that we're working on, so like I generally, with people, I'm probably not going to give them like one thing that's 5 days a week and one thing that's 1 day a week. It sort of depends on their motivation. If they're really motivated to try something that's like a 50 or a 60, I'm going to be like, depending on the scales, we might use a 5 or a 6, or we might use a 50 or a 60, just depending on how minutiae people want to get. That I might say like, okay, this is something to do once or twice this week. Like, do we want to say it's a once or a twice type of thing? But something that's like a 20, 25, 30, we might be like, okay, that's something that is an every other day. Every other day you're going to do that. Because if you do exposures too close to each other, then you haven't regulated from the last one. And you're going to ramp yourself up faster. And it puts things more at risk. So once the thing that we're working on gets low enough, then we move on to the next thing, right? So the 30, they realize, okay, it's about at a 10. That's too low. That's not triggering enough distress to help reteach you that even if I'm scared of this, that's okay. That doesn't mean it'll hurt me. Or that if it does hurt me, it won't be hurtful enough to like cause me the damage I'm afraid of. Something that was a 60 becomes a 30. Okay, now it's sort of moved into the can we try it more frequently range, right? So that's how we do exposure therapy. I do not want to imply anything about whether this is an effective method of exposure at this point that may prove out one way or another to or not to be. I just wanted to give that explanation of how we would do exposure therapy, because a lot of people do try to do exposure therapy for themselves or more dangerously for others. This is something that like parents will try to do a lot, where they'll try to like expose their children, like forcibly expose their children to something their kids are afraid of, to try to like teach them that it'll be okay. And that's like not a good idea to do it like that. If their kids are afraid of a vegetable, like just trying to hide that vegetable in a whole bunch of food is just going to make their kids more afraid of more foods because they haven't untaught the fear. They've just taught them that, like, now also the evil broccoli hides itself. So that's how we actually think about exposure. It's both active consent, coping strategies, and a reasonable level of distress. Enough distress to reteach your system that it's okay to do things when you're distressed about them, but not so much distress that it makes you that you cannot regulate. So this is something that I would generally like ask somebody to track. Like, okay, when do you start to feel distress? When do you start to feel fear? How do you know that that's what you're feeling? So for some people, now the heart rate the heart rate increasing might just be an excitement thing, right? I don't know what's going on with him. He's not telling me, but somebody might say to me like, yeah, I started feeling distress. Like, I was fine when I was outside. I didn't start to feel distress until I got inside and I saw somebody really high up, and then my heart rate really started increasing. And I think at about that point, like, I pretty much instantly went up to like a 15% or something, right? So somebody who has a pretty high amount of insight as to their distress curve might be able to give me that much information. I usually don't get that much information from people, but I have. I have.
저 불가능하면 집 보내줄 거예요? 손 떨리는 거 보여?
Okay.
안녕하세요. 준비되셨나요? 예. 제가
So then the question starts to be, okay, do you stabilize at that level of distress, or did your distress continue to increase? Well, my hands hadn't started to shake, but the longer I was there, my hands did start to shake, and you know, I started to feel nauseated. I started to XYZ. You know, someone like kNOw, I would bet that he'd be able to handle the level of anxiety that comes that you're probably at with like shaking hands. But I would start to ask if I were the therapist in the room at that point. Like, I'd definitely be asking periodically, like, hey, where are you at? I'm noticing your hands are shaking. What are you looking at? Will it help or hurt to wait right now? Because that can be a big one. Sometimes trepidation makes it worse, right? Sometimes I'm not doing the thing right now. I'm waiting to do the thing. That is a worse place than doing the thing, right? So that would be a question that if I were a support person or a therapist in the room, I'd be asking.
고소공포증이 있어가지고.
아, 그래요?
네, 근데 오늘 한번 극복 잘해보겠습니다.
극복하실 수 있습니다.
예.
파이팅 하시죠.
화이팅. 죽진 않죠?
아직은요.
아.
아직까지 죽은 분은 없습니다.
아. 알겠습니다. 제가 1호가 될 수. 저희
Okay, he's using humor as a coping mechanism, which I think in this case, valid. He doesn't have a bunch of them. You know, I do think joking self-aggrandization does tend to be a little bit more effective than joking self-deprecation, but like, yeah, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do at this point.
시작 전에 먼저 안전교육 영상 보실 거고요.
네. 예.
네, 잘 보셨죠?
예.
예. 우선 그럼 네 가지 수신호만 잘 기억을 해주시면 됩니다.
네.
제가 이 수신호를 드리면 어떻게 합니까?
다리를 핍니다.
맞아, 다리를 그냥 쭉 해주시면 됩니다. 마지막은
긴장하지 마라. 긴장하지 마라.
숨 쉬면서 고개 들어서 정면 바라보고 몸 크게 그대로 기본 자세만 잘 유지해 주시고 계시면 돼요.
네.
아까 그 고소공포증이 좀 있으시다고 하셨는데
저는 그 롯데타워에 3층에서 5층으로 연결되는 에스컬레이터가 있거든요.
네.
그거 못 타요. 한 층씩 돌아서 올라가요.
최대 높이가 20m까지가 되는데 여기까지가 되면 한 10m에서 15m가 돼요. 차근차근
예.
우리 한번 올라가 볼 거니까
좋습니다.
또 여기까지 신경 쓰세요.
제가 손이 좀 작은데
네.
영향이 좀 있을까요?
애기들 손도 충분히 돌 수 있습니다.
Yeah. Okay. This is, I think, a really reasonable set of coping mechanisms for the situation that he's in. I would generally say to people that, like, if you are looking for methods of feeling more in control like this, which is to say that, like, he's asking a lot of questions that are probably not super, like, reasonable or needed, right? But he's doing that to try to help himself feel better because probably he's having some type of there's some type of anxieties coming up about, like, yeah, like, if my hands are too small, then what if this happens? And if that happens, then what if this happens, etc. Uh, I think asking clarifying questions within a certain boundary is a very reasonable response to that. The point at which that as a coping mechanism would be a problem would be if you keep asking the same question, or if you start badgering them because you don't believe their answer, or if it's really being used as an avoidance method. Like, I'm just going to keep asking question after question after question in order to avoid doing the thing. Things like that. But I think if it's just like a little bit of self-soothing, especially for something that is such a extreme level of exposure for the level of fear, I think that makes a lot of sense.
아, 그쵸?
아이들 뭐 5살, 6살 아이들도 이쪽 오세요.
Straight kids hot, mega verse.
Now, this actually, and I bet that, like, they went through a lot of this first, and so he would have had this information much earlier than I did. This actually makes it a like, really solid, like, exposure experiment, because you're first doing it really low, right? If he did fall from that height that he started at, that is a non-issue. You're doing it with an instructor, right? So the instructor is also going to help you. Some people, if their phobia is extremely generalized, they might become more afraid because they are afraid of another person, uh right, like, if they're afraid of heights, they might be afraid of seeing anybody being high, and so if somebody was helping them, they might be afraid of for that person as well. But that is certainly not always the case. A lot of times it can be helpful to have an experienced person who is very chill about it, as a regulating tool. And then they increase the height as time goes on, right? So that does make it overall easier for this to be a chiller experience.
Welcome to the Straight Kids hot, mega verse.
어떠셨어요? 진짜 높이 올라가도 괜찮죠? 조금 더 높이 올라가도 될까요? 그래요? 좀 쉬시고 후. 지금 하시던 대로 그대로 하시면 돼요. 너무 잘하고.
보면 무서울 것 같거든요. 근데 일부러 고개를 이렇게 들고 이렇게 계속 안 봤거든요. 괜찮아요. 지금 얼마나 올라간 거예요?
Very smart way to handle this for the level of the exposure versus, like, what exposure he's actually had. Now, if this had been a planned let up to exposure, probably if somebody had proposed that to me, I would have said to them, like, that rather defeats the purpose of the exposure, right? To know you're up high, and close your eyes, might be its own exposure. Where does that sit you? Oh, well, if I can't see that I'm up high, I only know that I am. That's only like a 20%. It's the visual that really gets me. Right? So, okay, well, probably defeats the purpose. However, we can use that as a coping tool. So maybe what we say is you go up high, you keep your eyes closed for like 20 seconds to acclimate, then you open your eyes and you look down towards the ground for 3 seconds or 5 seconds, or whatever it has to be, and we sort of give you that exposure to reprieve, right? This is not a clinical experiment with kNOw, and thus he would not be pressured to do it like that. Again, for the experience that he's in, I think that's a very smart way of handling it.
첫 번째 유리 살짝 지나서. 아, 뭐야, 얼마 안 올라갔네. 이 두 번째 유리 끝까지 한번 올라갈 거예요. 아, 예. 괜찮겠죠? 예. 자신 있으시죠? 예, 지금.
The endorphins helped him for a moment there.
내가 드디어 날고 있어 이런 느낌이었고, 근데 사실 무서웠던 건 처음에 올라갈 때. 근데 올라가고 나면은 그냥 어쩔 수 없이 떠버리니까 괜찮았던 것 같아요. 아, 춤추는 사람인데 코어가 탄탄해야죠.
그러면 이번엔 좀 더 빨리 올라가 볼게요.
네, 이번엔 빠르게. 좋습니다. Let's go.
This is actually probably great from an exposure perspective, because the failure means that he keeps going up a little bit and then coming down and having to like see the ground approach from a relatively low perspective, and there's someone there to catch him. So it's signaling to his brain like, oh, you can be up a little bit and like start to come down, and like actually things will be okay. Like it's actually that repeated failure, which probably was not as expected, it's possible would be extremely effective of a tool for this type of thing.
아이 뭐야 이거 저 춤추는 사람인데 이거 뭐야 이거 춤추는 거랑 상관이 없다니까 달라 느낌이 달라 그리고 너 진짜 깔끔하게 잘하신다.
And actually, this is also great because now he has to focus on something that really has nothing to do with the height. He has to focus on something that has everything to do with like the somaticism of his body. And he has to focus far more on that than like what can happen is that all people have to focus on really is the fear. And if you have something else to focus on, it can be really helpful also.
아니 이건 좀 창피하긴 했어. 여러분들 이거 하지 마세요. 이거 옆으로 가는 거 배우지 마.
이게 다리가 근데 이렇게 파닥파닥 계속 거리더라고요. 그래서 좀 버텨보려 했는데 버티면 더 안 되는 것 같아요. 하다 보니까 조금 더 욕심이 생기는데 다음 거 도전 한번 해보겠습니다. 재밌어.
So this is another great method, is that he has found something that he can choose to sort of be self-competitive at, that he can choose to want to get better at. Sometimes people will just decide that they're going to want to get better at, not having the phobia. But he's found something that in and of itself has a skill curve. And he's somebody who like is probably going to want to, especially something to do with his body, going to want to get better at it. Again, a great cognitive redirection tool. Is it as helpful as a way to get over the phobia? No. Is it very helpful as a way to cope with something that from an exposure therapy perspective is far too intensive an exposure? Yes. Very good method to deal with the fact that, like, to avoid panicking, right? You're in a situation that you kind of got to be in now, and you need to find a way to make it helpful. This is he chose an activity that is very smart for doing that.
오, 돌아가긴 했어. 올라갔다 내려갔다 중심 잡는 게 어렵다니까 이게.
Okay, inspirational music.
정성은 그렇게 높게 보이진 않네. 그래서 안
Oh.
웃어.
Vaguely nauseating. Oh no, now he has to get down.
너무 재밌어요. 너무 재밌어요? 그럼 이제 고소공포증이 없네요.
Oh, wow, I wish exposure therapy worked like that. That'd be... I mean, it would make me have less of a job. So, like, maybe it's good, you know, job security that it doesn't. But it sure doesn't!
요즘 건방져서 될 것 같은데 이거. 처음에 좀 무서웠는데 일단 주변 사람들한테 추천할 거냐고 물어본다면 저는 무조건 추천할 것 같아요. 타는 것도 재밌는데 남 타는 거 보면 재밌을 것 같은데 제가 타면서 아 이거 되게 추하겠다 막겠다 라고 생각되는 부분들이 몇 개 있는데 그거 보는 재미도 있을 것 같고 친구분들하고 같이 오거나 아니면 멤버
I always love that they say you could come with your friends or your members, and then they're like, you don't have members. But if you had members, I'm like, y'all gotta stop doing this to us. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very reasonable to be like, if you don't have a debilitating fear of heights, that's a totally fun thing to do. And if you have a debilitating fear of heights, you might enjoy watching other people do it. But what this can do, an experience like this, can create a great basis for telling yourself in the future, for future type of exposure things, like, well, I've done this type of thing once before, and it did not make me fall into a terrible panic. And so I can probably do it again. Right? Now, of course, I'm assuming that he didn't fall into a terrible panic. It's not like they would put that on my screen if he did. But let's assume he did not fall into a terrible panic. And so that can set you up for more wins and successes in the future in order to reduce the phobia.
멤버들, 저만 멤버들이 있겠지만 그 멤버들이 있으신 분들도 같이 오면 재밌을 것 같고요. 제가 아까부터 말씀드렸지만 고소공포증이 있는데 신기하게 또 놀이기구는 타요. 그거랑 마찬가지인 것 같아요. 이게 내 다리로 어딘가를 걸어 올라가고 뭔가 그런 건 좀 무서운데 이렇게 약간
There's probably something to unpack there about control versus being out of control. It is not fully uncommon that... So there's sort of two ways this can go. Sometimes people have sort of control issues where if they are fully in control, they feel safe. But if there's any factor that's out of their control, they feel in danger. But some people have it the other way, wherein, and some people have it either way, but some people have it the other way, wherein if they are fully in control, they don't want to do the thing. But if there's a lot of factors outside of their control, they can manage it. There's probably something that could be unpacked here, but it'd be a decent chunk speculation, and kind of difficult to talk through without, like, I don't know, more information. I would have to speculate a lot in order to talk through why it is that he might be experiencing that, because there's a lot of different ways that comes out. There's a lot of different reasons that happens. Sometimes it's about, like, how willing you are to trust yourself. Sometimes it's about or it's about, like, fear of not being competent. Sometimes it's about fear of independence. Sometimes there's all kinds of factors to it. But yeah, there's sort of two different directions that, like, quote unquote control issues can come from. And one of them definitely is the direction of, like, when it is totally up to me on my impetus and my will, it's a lot harder to manage emotionally than when there are factors outside of my control.
억지로 갑자기 올라갔다가 갑자기 내려가고 그러면은 무서울 새가 없어서, 솔직히 그리고 더 위로 올라갈수록 더 안 무서웠던 것 같아요. 안 보여요. 막혀 있어서. 그렇게 너무 어려운 도전은 아니었다. 그래서 내 고소공포증을 이겨내기에는 너무 이지했다. 일상에서 받은 스트레스 풀고 싶으면 진짜 여기 한번 꼭 추천드려요. 내가 처음 와서 저 바람을 맞는다? 기분 째집니다. 아무튼 오늘의 총평 겁나 재밌다. 별 5개 중에 5개 줘야 되나? 일단 4.5점 드립니다. 진짜 도파민 미쳐요 그냥.
For now,
오늘 이렇게 약간
it's
신나는 도전을
not
했으니까 다음번에는
dopamine. I just have to be glad that they've moved on from talking about MBTI all the time. I just have to be glad that I have not had to deal with doing an MBTI crash out in, like, ages. It's been so long since I had to be mad about MBTI, so I can cope with them calling everything dopamine, even though none of these things are dopamine. That is an endorphin rush. Maybe an adrenaline rush. There's probably some dopamine involved, but it's probably not a dopamine rush. You're not doing a task that requires completion. It's not what dopamine is. And no, I don't think dopamine is a spoiler. I think they've been saying dopamine for a very long time, and they say dopamine a lot, and culturally, dopamine gets said a lot, and maybe one day it'll be a spoiler because we keep asking if it's a spoiler, but I've been hearing that dopamine is probably a spoiler since I became a stay almost 2 years ago. And they've been talking about dopamine for a long time. So, I am not holding my breath for a dopamine song. Though, I maintain that maybe it's a spoiler for them releasing their ADHD assessment results. That's possible. I don't know.
오늘 이렇게 약간 신나는 도전을 했으니까 다음번에는 지금 캠핑을 안 한 지 오래돼서 캠핑이랑 스테이가 좋아할 만한 거 커버 라이브 영상, 그리고 오늘처럼 또 새로운 도전을 할 수 있는 수영인데, 이것도 순둥돌이가 어떤 걸 골라줄지에 따라서 이제 결정이 나겠지만 좋은 선택을 해주길 바랍니다.
Okay.
순둥돌이 씨.
Let's see.
예.
Yeah. That's a very real certificate, I'm sure.
예.
He's gonna frame that, and every time any of his friends make fun of his phobia, he's gonna be like, fuck you, I'm certified in flying, bitch. Have you ever flown? I didn't think so, and he's going to become insufferable about it. Camping.
저 멤버들을 부르려고 올진 모르겠어요.
I'm so happy for you, Lino. Are you going to call the members to camp with you, or are you just calling the members for grocery shopping tips? I think that'd be the funniest answer, actually, if you were calling the members for grocery shopping tips. I think that'd be the best of all options. How long have I been doing this? 3.5 hours. I think it's eep time. It's not eep time. I think it's me doing things by myself without you time. Unless you're on my Discord server, in which case I'm never without you. Is there actually... hold on. How do I put the link to my Discord server on my channel? Is there like a customized channel button? I know that I'm doing this currently on my screen. I should stop. Customize channel. For best results... something else. An image? I don't want an image. I don't care about an image. Oh, wow, I can add my pronouns? Dope. I don't want it visible only to my subscribers. That's not helpful. Yeah, I did see that the camping episode just came out. Did he call his member... What do you mean none isn't a pronoun? What do you mean bitch isn't a pronoun? This is useless to me. Fine. Just be... Okay, well, fine. Channel URL? Anyway, oh, hey, I figured out external links. Cool. I'm gonna finally add the link to my Discord server into YouTube. Wow. I'm so good at being a content creator. It only took me a little over a year to put the link... Oh, no, wait. I've only had a Discord server for like 6 months. It only took me 6 months to put in a link to my Discord server into my YouTube channel. Wow. I'm such a good content creator. I am incredible at this. Oh my gosh. We're working in Discord on figuring out our comeback activities for Discord. What those are yet, I don't know. But there will be some things, such as things. People want comeback activities. I don't know what they're going to be yet at this point. Oh, that wasn't at all the link I wanted to use. Fine, whatever. It's okay. Join Discord. We're doing that. therapize people who aren't you, but try to help you anyway. And scream about friendship. That's my description. I'm really good at content creating. Yeah, so we're trying to figure out what comeback stuff we're doing on Discord. The moderators are chatting about that, and we are yeah, whether it's live streams or we're probably going to try to figure out some streaming stat integration stuff, and some other things. I will. Why, Kate? Kate, what do you mean you've shared a terrible kNOw Austin Powers edit in the Discord? Kate! I am so angry that this is largely my fault. Well, I need to go reassess every single choice that has led to a kNOw Austin Powers edit being part of the universe. I was gonna say that I'll be back tomorrow, but now I don't know how long this void is going to overtake me, though. How long will the void pull me in due to the shame I am going to feel for the rest of my life? No, we do not need a kNOw Austin Powers shirt. That is not an experience we need. I take it back. Don't join the Discord. Because apparently there's a kNOw Austin Powers edit in the Discord, which means my Discord server is now permanently cursed. Okay? It's cursed. I don't know what the edit's going to be like. I don't know what it's going to be of, but I do know that anywhere that edit exists is inherently haunted forever. I will tentatively plan on being back this weekend. I've got a lot of content I need to catch up on with you fucking losers. I want to do Skiz Code 100 while it's still June, because apparently that is Pride content. There's new No Way. I want to do the Racha log, where Han gets to experience his special interests for an entire Racha log. And since I've restarted on one kid's room, or two kids' room, whatever fucking kid's room I'm doing, I'd like to catch up on some of those things before I get even more fucking behind. I'm so disappointed in this reality. Good night, everybody. Or good morning. Or good time. Time. No, don't. Why do you want to be cursed? Oh. Bye, losers.